Hey all, welcome to ShareTreck. It's the 30th of March 2022, and as always, this is the daily update video, with the first part being news articles and geopolitical or economic news that might impact the markets today. The second part is going to be analysis of the Nasdaq and the VIX, and the third part is going to be genomic shares with an idea of determining what's their likely price trajectory for the day. So having said that, let's get started. So let's start off by just having a quick look at potential reasons why the market has still been green. I'm of the opinion that the raise in the market that we are seeing right now is not sustainable, because none of those risks that we spoke about in our many earlier videos have even come any close to being resolved. So one of the things that comes to mind is that probably the market participants are looking at the entire scenario and thinking it's not as bad as they thought it would be. So, for example, if we look back to maybe a couple of weeks ago, Russia was supposed to pay interest on its bonds, and I think it was to the tune of around $100 to $110 million or something in that region. And most of it was to be paid for overseas creditors who held those bonds. And at that point of time, it was felt that because of all the sanctions on Russia and the war that is going on, Russia may not be able to pay, and there would be a default. And the fear of a country defaulting on its dues was probably weighing on the market, and therefore we saw everything going down, along with the other risk factors that we have always been talking about: the Ukraine war, the inflation, the impending raise in interest rates, the more hawkish Fed, and supply chain bottlenecks, oil prices being high, all of them put together. So on top of that, if we had a sovereign country defaulting on its obligations, it would have been terrible. So probably that's the reason why the markets were down at that point of time. But it turns out that Russia paid off the creditors, and so no one had to lose money. However, that relief cannot last for too long, because unless this crisis is resolved, how is Russia going to pay the next tranche of interest payments that will come due? So that is the question. And the other factor that seems to have given a bit of bullish bias to the market seems to be that despite the fact that there is a potential risk that Russia may default in future, kind of survey of global banks has found that none of the major banks hold any significant amount of Russian credit that would cause ripple effects in the global financial market or spread the contagion. So that's another positive news that is probably helping the investors. And one of the other factors, of course, which I keep on hammering home, is that the EU is very close to finalizing a nuclear deal with Iran, which means that around 200,000 barrels of oil will soon come into the market if that deal gets ratified. And the US, the new administration, is also more in favor of getting a deal and having the nuclear control in place and getting more oil to cool its own inflation, is likely to sign on to it. And looking at that, what has happened is the OPEC has decided to increase oil production on their side. And I think that that's a good move on part of the OPEC, because if they did not increase oil production, then Iran can just waltz back into the international oil scene with cheaper priced oil and give an abundant supply of oil and take away market share. So definitely OPEC doesn't want to lose its market share. So they are going to increase the production. So the net result of all of that is going to be increased OPEC oil production and more oil coming in from Iran, which is more than going to offset what we lose from Russia. And overall oil prices are likely to come down going forward. And those are the reasons why the market could be optimistic, because if oil prices go down, it addresses the root cause of a good portion of the inflation that is happening right now if you take away the supply chain issues. So the oil inflation will go down, and we'll just be faced with having to deal with supply chain issues. And that can be resolved over a period of time with a concerted effort and a determined focus. So that's what I think is driving the optimism in the market. But personally, I'm not quite optimistic, because at this point of time, the Russia-Ukraine talks in Turkey are going on, but news is emerging that while the talks were going on, and while Russia was assuring that it's going to stay away from Kyiv until the talks continue, there has been amount of shelling that has been going on. An apartment complex has been raised in Ukraine. So all those things put together, it doesn't seem like it's any positive that came out of Ukraine-Russia talks is going to hold in the market, because there's a good amount of distrust about what Russia is saying and what it's actually doing. So we are back to square one. So probably today's market might see oil going up again and VIX getting a little bit more volatile. And after consecutive days of increase in Nasdaq, we might probably see some declines today. So let's go and have a quick look at the futures. So right now I'm looking at the futures for Nasdaq. It's around 9:14 in the morning, and Nasdaq futures indicate a drop of 92 points. That's around minus 0.60%. And so that doesn't look great. But if we were to go and have a look at our indicators and start off by looking at US oil, you will see that US oil is starting to gain. It started gaining after hours yesterday, and it put on, I think, $1.50, as I mentioned in my urgent video that I released yesterday evening. So it had already started going up yesterday, and that was because most of the people started feeling that Russia was not very sincere when it said that it's going to step back military activities while the talks are in progress, because the ground evidence was to the contrary. So that's the reason why it has gone up, and it's continuing to go up this morning. That's definitely going to have an impact on the VIX. So right now the market has not started. We still have 15 minutes to go, but it seems like the increasing oil price is going to probably prompt some people to take profits on the QQQ. So if we look at the action on QQQ pre-market, it's already down minus 0.63%. That's around $2.34. So I think the setup seems to show that it's going to be a rather sideways or downwards day today. Let us go and have a look at the cryptocurrencies while we have the opportunity. If you look at the Bitcoin, which had been galloping the last week or so, it's already dropped 0.74. And if you look at the map here, it's just about struggling on the support of 47,209, and it's just fallen below it. So we don't know whether it's going to hold, but there is definitely weakness in the Bitcoin market. And also the MACD for Bitcoin seems to be edging towards the signal line, and having been almost close to overbought, the momentum is dropping down. So these are two characteristics that I don't like, and I think that we might probably end up just below the current support of 47,209 for the day for Bitcoin. So if you were to look at gold, you can see that gold, after being weak when the Nasdaq was picking up, is now starting to go up again today. So it's moving in the opposite direction because it's supposed to be a hedge to inflation. And it has got a resistance from the 9-day and the 20-day exponential moving averages out here. And the MACD, which was bearish, is now turning towards the signal line, as you can see from this light colored histogram out here. And also the momentum, which was average, is now pointing upwards and tending towards above average. So those things together, it seems to me that gold is likely to pick up again today. And if we go to the long-term chart of gold, we see the cup and handle pattern, and the handle is completely formed. So now we need to have a breakout, and I'm assuming that the breakout will take us to 2,400 to around $2,700 per ounce for gold. And right now we are at 1,926. So in the past, we have already touched 2071, and that was the resistance out there for us. And we are in the process of breaking through that resistance. I'm going to put that here. So we are in the process of breaking through that resistance. So today we had already touched that point and come back down. And this is a bullish candle. We might see movements today upward for gold if oil prices do go up, and if Nasdaq turns down and volatility goes up. So So having said that, we'll wait for the market to open. It's around 918. So the market has opened, and let's look at what's happening with US oil. And as we can see, US oil has jumped, and it's gone up by 2.59%, the same like we saw in the pre-market. That's around $2.68, and it's being supported by the 9-day and the 50-day exponential moving average, and the resistance from the 20-day exponential moving average. The MACD is bearish, but it's moving towards the signal line, and the momentum is just about average. And I don't know where it's pointing right now, but it seems to be above average, and it's indecisive at this point of time. And it's all going to depend on how much the participants believe there's going to be a supply issue, whether it's Russia reneging or its promise of not fighting Ukraine while the talks are going on, or whether the Iran nuclear deal gets through. So those are the positive factors which can bring down the price of oil. If the market participants do not believe in any of them coming to be true, then we might have an increase in the prices of oil. So today I'm thinking that there's a price increase in store for oil, and also there's a good chance of profit taking on Nasdaq. So if we look at Nasdaq, you can see that Nasdaq is down minus 0.50%, because we had a steady number of days of gains in Nasdaq. If you look at this chart here, you can see that we have been having steady gains in Nasdaq, and the upward curve is quite steep. So if you zoom out and look at a one year time frame, you can see that we were following this downward slide all along, and then this is one of the largest and steepest increase that we have seen so far. So there is bound to be some amount of profit taking happening, and probably the 100-day exponential moving average will provide us a support, and then we'll bounce back from that. So this steep upward curve has got to moderate a little bit, so that we have a more moderate slope. So some amount of consolidation is in the books, in my opinion. Also, you can see that the MACD is now tending towards the signal line, even though it is bullish, and the momentum is pointing downwards. So those are the symptoms for a kind of moderation that's likely to happen. And again, if we go to look at our VIX, which is the other thing that we look at, we are getting a resistance for the VIX from 19.93. So if that resistance holds, we are going to be good with the Nasdaq. But if the resistance doesn't hold, then we might see Nasdaq dropping. So if we look at the MACD out here, it is tending towards the signal line, even though it is bearish, and the momentum is just about picking up. So everything now depends on oil prices, and oil prices depend on what the participants think about Russia-Ukraine war, where it is going, and the Russian promises, whether they are legit. The second thing is whether they believe that the Iranian nuclear deal is likely to happen, in which case we are going to have 200,000 barrels, I think, of oil coming in. And if the OPEC is definitely going to raise production in order to ease prices as they promised. If all these things hold true, then the price of oil should come down, and we'll see the Nasdaq going up. If any of those elements seem to be incredible for the participants, and they think that it's not going to happen, then that will put an upward pressure on the oil price. So that's the gist of it. Now let's go and have a look at our genomic shares and see how they are doing. So when we look at our genomic shares here, I'm just going to sort it quickly so that we have the best on the top. So the winner again today is Verve. It's up 2.38. And if we go into the chart, this is a long-term chart with each candle being 1 day. We can see that we are still very well above the bullish channel that we had made here, this green line connecting all the higher lows. And we now have the support of the 9-day and the 20-day exponential moving average. Our next resistance is the 50-day exponential moving average, which happens to be sitting at 27.95. So that's where we are. And also I can detect another resistance out here. If I draw a line out here, this could be a potential resistance, because we have had prices bouncing back from this level in the past, or bouncing down. So once we cross 25.95, our next resistance is going to be the 50-day exponential moving average, which is currently sitting at 27.95 for Verve. We look at Pfizer, it's up 1.63%. Our support remains 52.68. And our next resistance is going to be this diagonal red line, which was the support for our previous bullish channel and has now become our resistance. So once we break through that, then we'll be looking at being back in the bullish channel. When we look at the MACD, we can see that the MACD is bullish but tending towards the signal line. However, the momentum is pointing upward. So as long as the overall market dynamics with regard to oils remain in favor of Nasdaq, we are going to see positive gains for Pfizer, and Pfizer will retain its positive gains for the day. And if we look at Allogene, which is the next share in line, it's up 0.70%, and it's just crossed the resistance, which was at 9.93. So I'm going to mark this as a support. And it has got a resistance from the 50-day exponential moving average, which happens to be at 10.36. And right now we are at 10.11. So I'm thinking that given the MACD being bullish and tending towards the signal line and momentum being above average and flat, I'm thinking that we are going to stay below the 50-day exponential moving average, which is 10.36 right now. And we may end up positive and above the support of 9.93 for the day for Allogene. Caribou Biosciences is up 1.80%. MACD is bullish. Momentum is tending to above average. So it's all looking good for Caribou Biosciences today. It's got the support of the 9-day and the 20-day exponential moving average. And our next resistance is going to be out here at 10.04. And today we might try to reach towards 10.04. But we may not be able to cross it. Novartis is up 0.81, and we have converted a lot of resistances into support, and our next resistance happens to be at 88.41, which is this red line here. MACD is bullish, momentum is above average and pointing up. So I'm looking at Novartis trying to touch the resistance at 88.41 before the end of the day. Beam is up 0.06%. Beam is down minus 0.31. It just changed in front of our eyes. So you can see that the volatility is starting to pick up. We have support from the 9-day and the 20-day exponential moving average. The MACD is bullish. Momentum is just average and slightly pointing upwards. So Beam could go either way today. It may either end up flat or slightly positive, depending on how the oil market responds. Regeneron is down minus 0.18%, and we have support from the 9-day exponential moving average. And right now we are at 697.20 for Regeneron, with a bullish MACD tending towards the signal line, and Regeneron is overbought, so it's going to moderate a little bit. And as I mentioned yesterday, we could drop a little bit on Regeneron so that our bullish channel which comes up is not as steep as it was originally, and it should be somewhere around a 45-degree angle. So I could see a little more losses for Regeneron today. Vertex is down minus 0.04%, and we are still within the bullish upward channel, and we are likely to touch the upward resistance. So there's a good chance that if we go anywhere around 259.65, we might be giving up some gains. So if we look at the MACD, it is bullish but tending towards the signal line, and Vertex is also overbought at this point of time. So there's a good chance that we are going to lose a little more value, but it's nothing to worry about because we are still within the bullish channel, and we have the support of the 9-day exponential moving average. CRISPR is down minus 1.23. We are still above the bullish channel of this green line that we have plotted out here. And our MACD is bullish but tending towards the signal line. Momentum is above average or pointing downwards and then tending to go below average. So it's not looking good for CRISPR today. So as long as we stay above the bullish line out here, the bullish channel that we have drawn, I would be happy with it. Bluebird is down minus 0.58%. And we have a MACD which is bullish but tending towards the signal line in a bearish manner, and a momentum that is below average and tending downwards. So I'm not confident that Bluebird is likely to be positive today. So Bluebird is likely to end the day either flat or maybe negative 10 cents before the close of market. It has got support from the 9-day and the 20-day exponential moving average. The 20-day exponential moving average sits at 5.13. So I'm expecting that we may break below the 20-day exponential moving average, but stay above the 9-day exponential moving average, which is at 5.02 right now. Illumina is next with a decline of minus 0.82%. and our MACD is bullish but tending towards the signal line in a bearish manner. Momentum is above average but tending towards the average side, pointing downwards. So I'm thinking that Illumina is likely to lose a little more value today, maybe end the day at around minus 3.5. IMTX is down minus 1.60%, and we can see that the MACD is bullish, and the momentum is above average but tending downwards. Let us look at the 1 day to get more clues on what is happening out here. So each of these candle here is 1 minute right now, and you can see that the MACD is absolutely bearish and moving away from the signal line, and momentum is below average and tending downwards. So overall there is a bearish bias on IMTX, and so I'm thinking that IMTX is likely to test our bullish support line out here, which is this green line. And if it was to test it today, it has to fall up to 7.63, and that's not likely to happen. So I'm thinking that we are going to end up the day somewhere around 7.76 for IMTX. ARCG is down minus 1.67%. Our next resistance is 48.82. We are at this point of time slightly below our 50-day exponential moving average. And our next support is the 9-day exponential moving average, which is sitting at 46.03. Right now, we are at 47.73. Looking at the MACD, which is bullish, but the momentum, which is above average and pointing downwards, I am thinking that we are going to lose maybe $1 or $2 on ARCG before close of business. Intelia is down minus 1.78%, and we are still within the bearish channel, so that's an encouraging factor. We have support from the 9-day and the 20-day exponential moving average. MACD is bullish, but the momentum is tending to be below average, which is what I don't like. So I'm thinking that we are going to lose more on Intelia today, but we'll continue to stay above the 20-day exponential moving average, which is sitting at 72.90. Editas is down 2.05%. And if we look at the MACD for Editas, it is bullish but tending towards the signal line. The momentum is above average but pointing downwards, which is something that I do not like. And I'm thinking that we are likely to test the 50-day exponential moving average today before close. And the 50-day exponential moving average sits at $19.12. Right now, we are at 20.11. Teladoc is down minus 2.51%. And again, our MACD is bullish, but momentum is above average and pointing downwards. So I'm thinking that again for Teladoc, we are likely to test our 50-day exponential moving average, which sits at 72.53. So there is more losses in store for Teladoc today. PACB is down 3.29% after a gain yesterday, and it has it's struggling with the 9-day exponential moving average, which is at 9.94, and we are currently at 9.97. Given that the MACD is bullish, but the momentum is below average and pointing down, I'm thinking that we are going to convert the 9-day exponential moving average into a resistance for PACB today, and we are going to end up the day around 9.75. DNA is down minus 4.36% after all the gains that it had yesterday, and our MACD is looking bullish, but the momentum is betraying the fact that we're going to lose ground. It's above average but pointing downwards. So I'm predicting that DNA might lose probably 75 cents before the end of day today. So that brings me to a close of the market today. And I hope you liked this segment. And you can see that I have started recording before the market. And I'm thinking more and more that it'll be advantageous for us to have a live session. I'm seriously looking forward to your feedback, because a live session is likely to be longer. And I have seen that most of you do not like to watch a video that is longer than 25 minutes. So that's my major concern in going live. Please put your feedback down there so that I can get some feedback from you and do what is right. So till then, I'm going to do canned videos like this. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already for Everything CRISPR. Thanks and have a great day. Bye for now.